Good morning and happy Saturday, you guys. It is Amanda and Barron with Kicking Cancer Cares on KSLM Radio, 104.3 FM and 1220 AM. Our sponsor for this first half is Odd Moe's Pizza. They have a huge amount of locations, actually. So they've got North Lancaster, South Salem, McMinnville, West Salem, Kaiser, Tansborn, I don't know if I said that right, Newburgh, and Canby.
And for those that don't know, Tanisborn is up in the Hillsborough area.
Oh, okay. See, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Today, I'm actually going to, on my way out, I'm grabbing lunch for my family. And I decided on the Reggie garlic vegetable.
Oh, so that's got, good choice.
It is a good choice. So it's got artichoke hearts, fresh mushrooms, red onions, black olives, Parmesan cheese, mozzarella cheese, fresh tomatoes, cheddar cheese, green onions with their white garlic sauce. And that sauce is phenomenal.
She's having a hard time swallowing
I am.
Right now.
And then the crust, I didn't know that they also did, so they do original white crust, and then they do honey wheat crust, too.
Yeah.
And then as well as their gluten-free option, which is the cauliflower crust. And then I'm also going to grab some of their boneless wings and their potato poppers.
I was getting worried if you didn't add poppers in your mix.
I know. And then, of course, I got to grab the cheesy garlic bread, too, for my kids. They love that. So, Odd Moe's Pizza, you guys. Do yourself a favor. They even deliver. They deliver right to you. So, go check them out. And thanks, Mike.
Talk about a super smart business person. Because they deliver, they thought, well, what goes well with pizza? Beer. So they actually got an OLCC license, and you can buy the pizza and the beer while you're there. But since they're delivering it to your house, pizza and beer.
And they've got quite a few options, too, right?
Quite a few options. Yeah. They began working with Sandy Ann Brewing some time back. So Sandy Ann Brewing actually makes the beer, but now you can get several can options that have Kicking Cancer's logo on the side of the beer.
I love how it's all local.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Yep. Well, once again, we have a wonderful guest in studio with us, my friend Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Yes, hello.
Welcome.
Yes, great to be here.
Tell the listeners, what you do in town. How would somebody know Kate?
Well, I am a yoga instructor, mindfulness instructor, and I've been teaching for, I don't know. I started when my daughter was 3, and she's 13 now. So
10 years?
Yeah, 10 years, and it's been wonderful. To support people in that way.
And we're going to get into some of how Kate and I have worked together and some things you may not have thought about when it comes to yoga as the show progresses.
Perfect.
But last week was so intriguing because we had Yuri with us.
Oh, yes. That was, I learned a lot.
Oh, I learned a ton.
Yeah.
So much about Rush that I hadn't even thought about. And to have him here. So I know what really hit me that I thought was interesting, but what was the most interesting for you about?
I think that big explosion and all of the chemicals that leaked and how, and how skin cancer's the highest there.
Yeah.
And how, I don't know if they've proven it, but it's kind of interesting when you see big events like that happen and then what type of cancer runs high there.
Yeah.
So just learning the ins and outs and how different things can cause that type of stuff.
Well, and like I told Yuri, there's a phrase we use a lot, correlation, causation.
Yes, I couldn't think of it. That's what it was.
There is going to be really difficult for me to prove that incident is the cause of skin cancer.
Well, and especially because it was so hush-hush, too.
Yeah, but it's a very interesting correlation.
Very.
Well, the other interesting, because you mentioned the skin cancer, that the other top cancer over there is lung cancer.
Yes, and they smoke a lot.
Russians do like to smoke. But what I thought was interesting is he said he had this friend that came over here. He had to move to the United States to quit smoking because he wasn't old enough to buy cigarettes.
Yes, if you could reach the counter, you could buy cigarettes there.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
gosh.
if you're 7 years old and you're just tall, well, you can smoke and they'll sell you cigarettes.
His friend was 13 when he moved to the United States, and he couldn't buy cigarettes, so he had to quit smoking at 13 years old.
Bizarre.
Yeah. And Yuri left when he was 11, and he said he would go into he's in elementary school, he'd go to the bathrooms, and they were just filled with smoke.
Which is just bizarre to think about.
A bunch of elementary kids just smoking up a storm.
Crazy.
So definitely a big cultural difference.
Yeah.
The other thing I love at the end of the show is when Yuri spoke Russian.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
It was really cool. I love his accent.
I know.
It was really
awesome.
cool.
Well, we've been talking through this book, Kate. It's called 100 Disease-Fighting Foods. It's something I picked up at a magazine scan. It's at Time magazine. But today's is eggplant.
Okay.
Are you a fan of
I
eggplant?
don't think so.
Have you had eggplant?
I don't think so.
Have you had eggplant, Kate?
I have. I've had some really good eggplant parmesan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had me at Parmesan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Anything with cheese.
So that's actually a very common way. How do you cook it when you have eggplant? How do you cook the eggplant?
It's kind of like a lasagna dish. I have never personally made it though.
So this is what it looks like.
Okay, hold on. Have you had it?
I have.
Do you like it?
I do.
How do you cook it?
I fry it. So you
Oh.
so you slice it in slices.
Yeah.
And then just fry it on a frying pan or bake it, either way.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a different taste because people aren't used to eggplant,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a really good if you cook it right.
Okay. I love vegetables, so I'll give it a try.
There you go. Well, the magazine says this purple-black vegetable has cancer-fighting and cardioprotective phytonutrients called anthocyanins.
Okay.
And that's actually the purple. The purple is those anthocyanins.
Oh.
These compounds may also reduce blood pressure and help ward off hardening of the arteries.
Okay.
But it has been proven to be cancer-fighting, and that's your cardioprotective quality.
Mm-hmm.
So really good
All right.
disease-fighting food. And once again, for the listeners, if you would like a copy of this, you can just email Amanda at
kslm.news.
and she'll get you a copy of that picture. I decided to go a little different direction today with the update
Okay.
because there was just so much we talked about last week that I thought we could extend that conversation a little bit.
All right.
So one of them that I dug up, this is actually from the American Cancer Society, and this is their facts and figures for 2024. So very recent information from their website.
Yeah. Very.
And they predict that this year there will be 2 million plus new cancer cases in the United States.
So many.
Wow.
So many. But this is the one I thought we could really have an interesting discussion about. Of all cancer deaths in people under the age of 50, colon cancer is now number 1 in men
Oh, wow.
and number 2 in women. Breast is still number 1 for the ladies.
Right.
But what I find so intriguing about colorectal cancer is, in my opinion, that is one of your most preventable cancers.
Okay.
Because if it's bad going in,
Then it's
bad going
coming
out.
Yeah.
You know.
Fair enough.
And if our food system is that messed up, that is now the number 1 killer under age 50.
That's pretty eye-opening, actually.
Any thoughts here, Kate?
Yeah, that's just incredible.
Very scary.
Yeah, because like you said, what we put in our body with different foods and preservatives and chemicals and poisons, and it kind of makes you that I didn't realize. Yeah, that it is so preventable.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous with that one, and in number 2 in women also.
Yeah.
So it's not just attacking one or the other. It's what we're eating.
Yeah.
Through and through.
The other thing that I find intriguing about this, and again, people can, we'll show this to the camera. Anyone can go find this. I just went and found this. Yeah, there's the camera. For the longest time, all the ads you see on TV is when you turn 50,
Yes.
get your colonoscopy. So they're telling you, wait till you're 50. Except this says, all cancer deaths in people under 50.
So you got to go.
So
way
if you
before
wait
50.
till you're 50, you're already dead.
Yeah. Jeez.
Number 1 killer in men.
Yeah. Get your checkups.
Get your checkups. We actually have a guest next week who is with the Phil Knight Institute.
Okay.
And Derek is going to talk about what you can do on the preventive side.
Perfect. Because that can, if you can,
you can
that's
get
a
ahead of it.
huge part of all of this.
Just get ahead of it. So I thought that was intriguing. Well, the other one, because we did mention it last week about how we have taken our SAD diet, our standard American diet, to Russia.
Yeah.
Thanks to our amazing camera person, Ashlie. She actually found this for us.
Okay.
Top 5 fast food restaurants in Russia.
Oh.
Number 1 is KFC.
Okay.
Number 2 is McDonald's. Number 3 is Burger King. Number 4 is Subway. And number 5, tied for number 5, is Domino's and Papa John's.
Okay.
But this is what I find really intriguing. It was in the late 80s that the wall in Eastern Germany came down. And Gorbachev began looking more towards capitalism as a possibility in Russia, right? It was the beginning of the collapse of the Soviet Union and all the little breakoffs of countries.
Right.
Late 80s. January 31st, 1990 was when the first McDonald's went into Moscow.
Interesting.
Right after we said, oh, maybe capitalism is a good thing. And
they
McDonald's
jumped on that opportunity.
Right on that. So they have had McDonald's now for 33 years.
Wow.
51% of Russians, when they go out to eat, they go to a fast food restaurant.
Wow. Okay.
It's almost like we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have given them our sad diet.
Yes.
And 79% of Russians go to fast food 5 times a month.
That's a lot.
Well, I know people that go 5 times a week
Yeah.
here in the United States.
I'm not going to lie, with Lucy and what she's been dealing with, I have not been cooking.
Yeah.
And so I have ate a lot of McDonald's, more than I'd like to admit.
But it's great that we have Mike with Odd Mo's, who, is that going out to eat? Sure it is, but at least he has some good healthy options for you.
I didn't even think of that. He's got so many amazing fresh ingredients.
You can get a
too,
salad from
and
Mike.
Delivered.
Yeah.
Don't even have to send my husband.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's a bonus.
So I thought that one was intriguing.
Yeah, very.
The other one that we did a little research on, the number 1 cancer in the United States is breast. Number 2 is prostate. Neither one of those made the top 10 in Russia.
Okay.
Except we found a very interesting little video that talks about the hormone imbalance that is occurring within Americans.
Women have more testosterone than estrogen, although estrogen is clearly the more famous of the hormones in women. So low estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone in women have effects that are bad for women. When perimenopause hits, for years they've said hormone therapy is bad, estrogen's bad, yet we've known for 20 years that bioidentical hormone replacement in women lowers their risk of getting heart attacks and dying. So it turns out that's so weird. In men and women, if we keep their hormones at healthy young people levels, they stay younger, they don't die, they have much higher quality of life, and they don't get sick as often. Why would the pharmaceutical industry not want us to do that? I can't imagine. Can you think of a reason?
They don't make money.
Yeah, yeah.
And your hormones directly relate to breast cancer, prostate cancer.
They do. Yeah.
And inside this video, basically what they're saying is the pharmaceutical industry is trying to keep us in a state of hormonal imbalance.
I believe that.
And the guy that's doing the interview, he says, well, why do you think they're doing that?
Money.
Yep.
Money.
Yep.
It fills their pocket.
Yep. As long as your body is not in a state of hormonal balance, then it's a whole lot easier to get diseases. And then they got all these pharmaceutical fixes for the diseases.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you remember we talked about the global cost of pharmaceuticals last week? I don't know if you saw this, Kate, but there's one drug specifically. It's called Keytruda. Keytruda is designed not as a chemical therapy, but it's an immunotherapy. It's designed to allow your body's own immune system to theoretically kill the cancer. That one drug alone made $25 billion globally. And if you take the pharmaceutical industry as a whole, it was a $250 billion.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
So they take their wealth over our health.
And yet, yes. And the solution is right in front of us, but we're so busy listening to what they say that we're missing the solution.
Well, I think we just get so busy, too. If we slow down and just focus on ourself, our self-care, our body, and wellness, we can go a lot longer and farther.
Well, you truly are the Segway queen. That's why Kate's here.
Really?
Yes, that is why
Slow
I'm here.
down and take care of yourself. She is all about self-care.
Yes.
That's funny. Okay.
You didn't know that.
I didn't know it.
Well, what I thought I would do is kind of walk the listeners through a book that I found. So I found this book in the end of 2018, and I began reading it, and I was just so intrigued with stuff that's in here that this became the foundation for our core values.
Yeah.
Okay. This is by Dr. Lorenzo Cohen, He has a PhD. He is at the MD Anderson in Houston, Texas, and his job is integrative medicine. His job is prevention.
Mm-hmm.
And he says early on in the book that based upon the statistical models that are out there, he says if we don't take prevention more seriously, in 20 years, every other American is going to have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So then he laid out 6 things that you could do. Well, we took 5 of those 6 because the 6th one's in your environment, and you can only do it in your environment.
Right.
Well, one of them, he says, is we need to eat real food.
Amen.
We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
He says treat food as medicine. He says
Yes.
you need to move for wellness. We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
He says you've got to have a social support system. We've talked about that. Well, one I thought we could pick up on is something that Kate is actually a pretty good expert on, is stress.
Okay, that is a big one.
This whole chapter is on stress and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to read one quote that's going to lay really well into what Kate does, okay? Researchers at UCLA found that caregivers who often face intense levels of chronic stress. So you think about somebody in the family has cancer, now I'm the caregiver. And that person that's the caregiver has chronic amounts of stress.
Yeah.
Were able to change their inflammatory profiles by engaging in 12 minutes a day of specially designed yoga meditation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Researchers at UCLA found that.
Okay.
What do you do again, Kate?
That's what I do.
So I had a chance to talk to Kate, and I find this really intriguing. And I'm going to let Kate kind of go into this, but there's 2 things our bodies do when we get into stress.
Mm-hmm.
We get into what's called hyperarousal or hypoarousal.
Okay.
So Kate, tell the listeners what exactly is what's hyperarousal?
Mm-hmm. So these are 2 ways our nervous system deals with stress. Basically, when we're in survival mode, where we've got too much going on, we're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, maybe even depressed. And so there's 2 ways that we deal with that. The hyperarousal, which is the HYPER, hyperarousal, or the hypo, which is the HYPO, hypoarousal. But hyperarousal is one we're all really familiar with. It's the fight or flight response. Mm-hmm. A lot of us have heard that term before.
Yeah.
And the other one's the one that we don't talk about as much, but that's the freeze response. So there's the fight, flight, or freeze. You can also call that the shutdown response or the collapse.
That's me.
Yeah.
I'm a freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, dissociation is very common with hypoarousal. Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned to me that when people get into these stressful situations, you called it chronic stress, but there's some chemicals that begin to occur in our body.
Yes, so we're pumped full of stress hormones, which include cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. And when we're pumped with those chemicals, they're necessary for survival. They get us to mobilize, to fight or flee. But too much of that for too long becomes toxic for our body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we start to shut down. Even like physically, our body starts to deteriorate. So it's really important to be knowledgeable or build some awareness around how your body is responding to stress. Can I see the key indicators that I'm dysregulated right now, that I'm either entering the fight or flight response, that hyperaroused state, or the hypo, am I getting into that state because I'm so overwhelmed?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead.
When I get into my freeze state of mind, those emotions do still continue to flow. And I tell my husband it's like an emotional overload.
Yeah.
I'm completely overloaded with just everything when I'm in that state of just the freeze.
Yes.
And so, yeah,
Yes.
I'm totally picking up what you're putting down.
Well, and I'm just going to throw out a theory. Once again, causation, correlation.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the listeners have heard Brenda's story, my sister.
Yeah.
It was November of 2015 when she found that she had breast cancer. And the way she found out was just so intriguing because her husband is a venture capitalist. He was raising money for this machine called a thermography machine. It basically blows cold air on your body so that it can detect the hot spots in your body, and cancerous cells are hotter. And Brenda just wanted to show the people that he was trying to get funding for how non-invasive this machine was. So she sits down the machine, and it does this whole thing. And the guy said, "Did you know you had breast cancer?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how
How
she found out.
How she found out. Yeah.
Except for about probably about 6 years prior to that, they had moved to Arizona, and at that time, he was basically negotiating the price of dirt so that you could build a subdivision or a shopping mall or whatever, right?
Right.
And this would have been right before the economic collapse. And so
Oh, yeah.
afterwards, everyone's just mad because they lost money, and they're trying to blame him for what happened,
Right.
which he had nothing to do with it. But they were in the middle of a $1 million lawsuit. So I'm telling this to Kate,
Yeah.
right? A little bit of stress in the house.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just my belief, based on what I've learned, that stress triggered her cells.
Okay.
Would you agree?
I would definitely agree. And there's strong research. You know, they're starting to do a lot more research on the effects of that and how your immune system can instantly become like not as high functioning.
Yeah.
We also have all these other effects where, you know, suddenly you're not sleeping well, right? So you're not getting that cellular repair overnight, and anxiety, depression, all these things that weigh heavily on our body.
Yeah. The other one I thought was intriguing that you said to me, Kate, was that stress can change our body structurally, but by implementing some techniques that we're going to talk about, you can also reverse that.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
And you drew out a really cool diagram for me. It's like this little ladder. And so the top of the ladder is where you feel safe. And then the middle is where you go into fight or flight. And the bottom of the ladder is shutdown.
Yes.
So kind of describe to the listeners, how does that cycle work? How does that ladder work?
So the thing about stress is that we often can get dysregulated and not complete what we call the stress cycle. We want to complete the stress cycle to return to a state of safety, because essentially that's what we're needing, is we're needing to return to a state where, oh, I am safe right now. I can slow down and breathe in this moment and relax my body.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, completing the stress cycle, this is, you know, it's from polyvagal theory. It's a really fancy, relatively new theory, where we're trying to stay in that relaxed state of safety and social engagement. Let's say a stressor comes and you're like, oh crap, you know, whatever the scenario is, and you go into that fight or flight response, and you're immediately trying to fix the problem. You know, fixing the problem is, you know, it's a state of being more hyper aroused.
Yeah.
So we go immediately into that fight or flight response. I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to get it done. And let's say you have success with that. Then you're going to go back up the ladder, and you're at the top again of feeling safe.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we're returning back to neutral. But let's say you have that maybe a different problem. Okay, get into a fight or flight response, and you realize, you know, because life throws us things, limitations, challenges, obstacles, and sometimes those limitations we're facing don't have an easy solution, or not something that's quick, and we're kind of stuck in a problem for a while, or we know we're going to be in this stressful period for some time. There's no way to really fight it. I can't really run away from it. So we go further down, all the way down to the bottom of the ladder, into that freeze response, where we collapse, we submit, we feel kind of trapped in what we're dealing with. And so we want to complete the stress cycle. We want to go back up the ladder to the top, which requires some skill. It requires some techniques. These are These are states where you can't think your way out.
Right.
You can't logic it. These are survival mechanisms. And so we have to use the body. We have to use somatically tuning in with the body with all a bunch of different practices, which is what I do. Is I teach people different ways to do that and go back up the ladder, back to the state of safety.
Okay.
So I think this is a great spot to stop for the commercial and pick this back up after the commercial because I know I got to that bottom and couldn't figure out how to get out. And it sounds like you may have
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah, so let's pick this discussion up after the commercial break.
All right, you guys, so I'm going to give a huge shout out to our sponsor for this first half, which is Odd Moe's Pizza with many, many, many different locations. So if you guys are looking for some things, and they've got so many things outside of pizza. They've got boneless wings and bone-in wings. They've got donut dunkers. Those look phenomenal. They've got 3 different pastas. They've got the garlic basil pesto, traditional red sauce, and then the garlic red pepper. They've got chicken strips, boneless wings, cheesy garlic bread, poppers, 3 different kinds of salads. And then they've got what they call mojos, which is like
Kind of like JoJo's.
JoJo's, yes. Yeah. And then their pizzas are absolutely phenomenal. You can build your own. You can choose from 3 different types of crusts, and they're their sauces. They've got red sauce, garlic white, barbecue, salsa, chipotle lime barbecue. That one sounds amazing.
We may not come back from commercial break.
Right? Okay, I'm just going to have to cut it. Thank you, Oddmos.